The presentation I want to make to you today is around the new certification program. In terms of sort of going backwards, we, about a year and a half ago, a group of individuals got together to decide at a very high level what this program might look like, to see if in fact we thought we could develop a certification program that would encompass all three designations and would build a solid professional accountant in Canada. This program was not developed without there being a lot of input from the various designations and from various stakeholders across the country. In addition to the CPA program itself, we also have advisory groups that have been formed to help us work through a number of issues, and we've involved people, volunteers, staff people across designations. We have academics involved in the various subcommittees that are advising us as we move forward with this program. So, for example, we have a competency map program or competency map committee, a group working on advanced standing, so what that might look like as we try to ascertain, I guess, what points of entry there might be into the new program. We have a group working on transition, because obviously we know that our students and our academics are concerned about how we're going to transition from the legacy programs into the new program and what that might look like. We have a group looking at public accounting, because we know this is a key area and we know that it has to have a broader scope than just education. So the group working on the public accounting side of things are not just the education people, but also we have people from the regulatory background are making sure that the standards that we develop and how we educate students to meet those standards are consistent and are highly regarded across the country. We're working on practical experience, post-certification specialization. We're trying to develop and do research around what a mid-tier certificate program might look like. And we have a group dedicated to trying to look at communications and making sure that we get information out to the key stakeholders as quickly and as fully as possible. The competency map we're very excited about. The competency map committee has worked very hard. They have just released a competency map out to the provinces for comment. In terms of the development of the map had significant input from both academics and employers. It is now being reviewed by the provincial bodies, and we expect, hopefully, to have the competency map out, released and available to the public in September 2012 in both English and French. And when you look at the amount of work that goes into the development of a competency map, you're going to be very impressed when you see the document that this team has actually been able to put together in a relatively short period of time. In terms of the competency map, it is definitely, as I said before, competency-driven. It identifies technical and enabling competencies. So there are 6 competency areas from the technical perspective: financial reporting, strategy and governance, management accounting, audit and assurance, finance, and taxation. There should be no surprises there. We're covering off the topic areas that we would have expected of a professional accountant. In terms of the enabling competencies, and these are the things that really make a professional accountant, move you away from the strong technical knowledge, but really develop a person into a solid professional that can provide value out in the community and out in the business place. So we're looking at professional and ethical behavior, problem solving and decision making skills, communication skills, being able to self-manage yourself, and finally being able to work in a team and develop leadership skills. So in addition to the technical areas within the map, it is also very important that we develop in whatever program we put forward these enabling competencies, because they are critical to the success of our candidates ultimately. When we were developing the CPA education or the professional education program, we initially had to start with a vision of what we wanted the professional accountant in Canada to look like. We just couldn't decide ourselves what we wanted that individual, what kind of competencies, what kind of skills, what kind of professional we wanted that person to be. So we went back to the leadership of the profession and we said, give us a vision. Tell us what we're building to. Who do we want this individual? What do we want them to be able to do? What do we want them to look like? And what they gave us was that they want this individual to be the preeminent, internationally recognized Canadian accounting designation, but also a business credential that best protects and serves the public interest. So it's no small task to develop a program that was going to create a professional accountant to meet that vision. We were also given certain other guiding factors that we had to make sure were built into the new program. It had to be as rigorous as the existing legacy programs. We couldn't lower the bar. We had to meet the needs of industry, government, and public practice. And from my perspective as a CA, traditionally, the CA program had produced auditors. And we knew now that we needed to produce professional accountants who were more than auditors. And so that was certainly spelled out very clearly to us throughout the program, or throughout the program development. And finally, it had to meet all the IFAC standards and requirements, and it had to cover and make sure that we continued to meet all of our current and future MRAs. And that was kind of an interesting perspective, and the MRAs are the mutual recognition agreements that we all have with the various other countries around the world. And the interesting piece of that is that was the outside lens looking in for us. We knew that we thought that we had developed a solid program, and it's easy enough for us internally to sit back and say, you know what, we think we've done a good job, we think we've met what we're trying to do. It's an entirely different process altogether when you have to go out and sit down with other countries and say, does this program still ensure that we are at the standards that we were at before, if not higher? So in terms of entrance requirements for the new program, you have to have a university degree for admission into the program. We're not going to outline what specific prerequisites are, but what we've said instead is we're going to provide universities with guidance as to what the expectations are for entry into the program. So what is the specific subject area coverage that a candidate is going to need to have prior to entry into the program, and we will be providing guidance to the educators as to what that's going to look like. As well, the notion is that there will be accreditation standards in order to ensure that the programming and the materials and the prerequisite knowledge coming into this program meets what we need it to be. There will be nationally developed accreditation standards. One of the things that we did look at was that we know that the university degree doesn't have to be in accounting. And in fact, oftentimes we find that some of the best candidates coming in don't have the traditional Bachelor of Commerce university degree, but bring to the table other skills and other experiences. So, but anybody coming in with a non-accounting degree will still have to have the specified credits and the specified coverage area in order to provide them with the knowledge levels that they need to enter into our program. Once they've gotten their academic prerequisites or their academic courses, every candidate coming in will have to complete modules 1 and 2. And modules 1 and 2 are really the core modules. And it's in modules 1 and 2 that we're going to be developing and working on building a lot of the core knowledge that they've gotten in the university prerequisites and starting to integrate it and really moving them through the knowledge that they need to be able to work through the rest of this program. Core 1 and Core 2 are common modules. Everybody has to take them. It's in Core 1 and Core 2 we're going to focus on developing financial accounting competencies, managerial accounting competencies, assurance competencies. So those things are going to happen, and those competencies are going to be built in Core 1 and Core 2, but they're not going to be standalone. The notion behind Core 1 and Core 2 is that they will be integrative in nature. So in addition to learning management accounting competencies, financial accounting competencies, there will be integration with finance, tax, audit. The notion is that everything will be built in to these first 2 cores that every professional accountant needs to know, because this is what everybody is going to do. But we also realized when we were designing this program that with the combination of competencies that we're going to be looking at now for a professional accountant in Canada, the scope was too broad to expect everybody to know everything. It doesn't work anymore. There's just too much out there. So what we realized is that candidates with different interest areas will probably like to take a deeper dive, and that's the terminology we're using here, is into some of these elective areas. So all candidates, once they've completed their core programming, will then move on to their electives. Right now we have designed 4 areas of elective choices. They can do electives in assurance, performance management, tax, and finance. They will not be specialists in tax coming out of this program. They will not be specialists in finance coming out of this program. What these areas are meant to entail is a deeper dive into some more complex areas, allowing them to broaden their competencies, but not to get to a specialist level. Because you remember that the individual coming out of this program is still at entry level. The same way as an individual coming out of the CMA program today is at entry level, the same way that an individual coming out of the CA program today is at entry level. And I think that's a critical clarification to make, because the feedback that I'm getting is people think that these are like almost movements towards specialization, and they're not. They're just meant to give them a broader area of coverage, an opportunity to delve a little deeper into a subject area that interests them. Obviously, if you have a candidate who is interested in a public practice, in a public accounting environment, their choice of elective would have to be in assurance and tax. So that's the only caveat we've put on it thus far. So students could choose to do an elective in tax and finance. If they're working in a corporate treasury, for example, might be a good fit for them. However, if you want to be in public accounting, you're going to have to do audit and tax. Once we have our students through those 2 elective modules, then we are going to move into what we're calling an integrative module. The interesting thing about developing this program is we had a real opportunity to look at what we thought were the best things across all 3 of the existing professional education programs in Canada. And one of the things we realized is there was a lot of value add in the CMA model in terms of the board reports. The team learning, the ability to bring people together. You got to remember that people will have had different exposures now because they will have completed different electives. So the ability to bring these people together and work in a team and to work in a fully integrated case environment, there's certainly a value add to that, we thought, in our program. This module will not be as large in scope as the board report, but the notion is that it would sort of look like that integrated case-based type of programming. So all candidates will go through the integrative module. So if you think about it, we bring everybody in common, we then allow them to go out and explore in their elective modules, and then we bring them back together. They develop, and this is where this is the real opportunity to develop some of those enabling competencies that I talked about earlier on: teamwork, leadership skills, communication, the ability to self-manage. The opportunities to do that are really going to be demonstrated in the integrative module. Once they've completed the integrative module, there will be an exam preparation module followed by a final exam. And again, as I said, there are strengths in all of our programs. And around the world, one of the strengths in the CA program is the quality of the final evaluation and what that brings to candidates and allows how that forces candidates and enables them to bring together these high-level integrative skills. So that's going to be reinforced in the final evaluation. In terms of the final evaluation, you will still require breadth and depth. So you'll have breadth across all competency areas. You will have depth in either management accounting or financial accounting and one other area. So for those of you familiar with the CA program today, you know that we have to demonstrate depth in performance measurement and assurance. What we're suggesting now is you would have to demonstrate depth in one of the 2 accounting areas and one other area. However, again, if you're looking for a licensure or the ability to practice public accounting, in all likelihood, your second depth area is going to have to be in assurance. Once you've done that, then you've completed our program and you're on the road to becoming a CPA. The only other piece, and it's layered on the top of this, is the fact that there is still going to be and will continue to be practical experience requirements. So the individual who completes the professional education program and then completes the 24 qualifying months of practical experience will then be eligible for their designation. The program is designed to be a nationally developed and provincially or regionally delivered program, depending on how the regions and the provinces decide to deliver the program within their own jurisdictions. It will be a graduate level program. It is going to be part-time over 2 years, this modular program that I've just discussed, while working with relevant employment. However, In Quebec, for example, it will be a full-time university-based option for those accredited universities. And again, we're still discussing the notion of how the accreditation will work and what the accreditation criteria will be. But there is the notion that a university could become accredited to meet our nationally developed learning outcomes and therefore develop a university-based system. Assessments will be built into all modules. So at every point along the way, there will be assessment. Right now, the assessment in the first 4 modules, the 2 core and the 2 electives, will be individual assessments. The assessment in the integrative module, the team-based module, will be a team-based assessment. In terms of the practical experience, this was an interesting piece to work on. What we discovered, in the CAA world, we have the approved training office approach. So we design a path, we work with an employer to create a path, we put students through that path, and at the end we certify that they've met the experience requirement by virtue of having completed the path, which we approve and we monitor. So there's a lot of work up front that goes into that process. However, in the CMA environment, where more of their students are out in smaller types of environments and working in different types of offices, we also recognize that the approved path methodology wasn't going to work. So we went and we looked at, well, what's important to us in this? What's important is that the students develop the competencies that we need them to develop. It's important that we have oversight by the profession. It's important that there's a commitment to ethics within the training environment. And those things can be derived not just in an approved training office module, that we can do that with appropriate oversight by the institutes. And so therefore we were very comfortable coming to the point where we looked at an experience verification model, which was more along the lines of positions were supervised and mentored by a CPA who may not be employed by the candidate's employer. The idea is that these candidates would be bringing in, they would have to do more frequent work with the institute. They're going to have to fill out fairly comprehensive practical experience reports, and those are going to have to be monitored and interpreted by the institute to ensure that these candidates are meeting the competencies required of a CPA. From our perspective, it's just a question of when the work is done. Either the work is done up front to approve the office, or the work is done on the back end and really looking at the experience that the candidate is bringing to the table and reporting. Either way, there's oversight by the profession, and either way, the candidates have the opportunity to get really good practical experience in a variety of settings.